9 p.m. here at the JMC studios. We are trying out the studio edition of the live stream studio. We haven't used this in a while, so bear with us as we work through this evening trying to get this program to where I am Jeremy and this is Brenda. We are JMC Ministries. This is JMC Live. I wanted to briefly start out with just letting people know, just to highlight the funeral services for those that were in the plane crash have been going on. And Ron Luce has spoken at Garrett's and Stevens. And Hannah has an update with the skin grafts. She's doing better, feeling a lot more livelihood, as they call it. And we just have to keep everyone in prayer because so much is going on that from attacks on Christians, on Christian attacks, and a bunch of other stuff. You got to pray for Team Annie. You got to pray for us. We just did an interview with Mazzen, Warra, Palestinian-Christian. We did a faith and politics show with Joshua Turner. And this has been a very busy week. In fact, I had to cancel plans for this morning to go to Wilmington, Ohio. That's all I'm going to say. There's plans for a future program in Wilmington, Ohio. We may actually live stream from Wilmington, Ohio. More details coming soon as this comes down the comes down the pipe, as they call it. A lot of stuff is coming down for JMC Ministries as a whole, but without further ado, I wanted to get into what exactly we're covering this week. A lot of stuff is happening, and I always say there's a lot of stuff happening because there's a lot of stuff happening. We'll talk about someone who I heard this on the radio, and I read it, and I sit here and wonder, would I do the same thing? Would anyone do the same thing? Well, in Kentucky, somebody did an amazing feat when in a Kmart store. We're going to talk about what happens to preachers and temptation meets preachers.
When they become wildly successful.
Wildly successful. You know, a good example is like, can they keep their batteries charged? And then the big thing we did in the preview video.
When is that batteries charged?
You know, can preachers keep their batteries charged? You know, against temptation. Because what happened?
I was wondering, why were you looking over there?
I'm looking at batteries I got over there. And then we're also talking about FedEx employees.
Employee
discrimination suit. And then we'll talk about the anti-bullying. Just briefly on that before we get into it later.
My nose is itching.
There's a seminar that you'll find out about Rick Warren's church had. And then what can you do as a Christian with GPS? It'll really surprise you. An interesting way that GPS is used for missions in general. And what's going on in Iran. Without further ado, we're going to go right into the beginning of this stuff with Kmart. Now, Kmart, for those of you that don't have a Kmart, some of you won't understand this, but let's look at this from a whole and how this actually works. Well, a Clark County man, this is in Kentucky, he used his money to buy a large amount of clothes. Now, you got to understand, this Clark County, Winchester, Kentucky area, their Kmart was closing permanently. Permanently. He wondered where all the unsold items were going to go, and the clerk told him that power buyers are going to take it all. So he signed up to be one of these people. So I'm guessing this was like the last week, the last day of the Kmart store being open normally.
Yeah.
And 6 hours, 4 cash registers later, over $200,000 worth of merchandise, all which he donates to the Clark County Community Service, who will be able to hand out enough winter warm clothes next winter. He runs a painter buying center, a jewelry exchange business in Winchester, and he just realized how bad it was in the community, and he just wanted to give it to charity. Just give the stuff to charity.
Well, Kentucky and West Virginia are one of the most hard hit. I mean, Appalachian area has always been a poor area. And to be hit by a recession, you basically put those poor... It wasn't a recession that hit West Virginia, Kentucky. It was a depression. You've sent those people back into the 1930s, you know. We have friends that were actually missionaries to West Virginia for a few years, and they said it's unbelievable. People living with no electricity, no sewage, they're using outhouses, and water. The water's not even down there. Sometimes the water isn't even healthy to drink, and you need to purify it, and of course people can't afford that. I mean, if they can't hardly afford electricity, people literally living in sheds, just shack buildings, and I mean that's what happens down there, and it's really sad that, you know, this goes on. But thank God for people like this man who decided to buy out the whole Kmart and donate it to people in need.
Yeah, it's an amazing.
Thank God for that. And
it's an amazing story just to see somebody to want to actually.
My nose is itching really bad.
Brandon's nose is itching. I don't know what that's got to do with anything, but
allergies.
Could you, as an individual, say that you would do something like that today? Would you actually?
Who has $200,000 to do that, other than people that are running businesses?
And I do apologize for that for the live show. I'm trying to get our next stories up. I didn't know there was a pop-up coming. I apologize.
But who in today's society has money like that, just $200,000 to do that with? It is going to be people who have been successful entrepreneurs. That's honestly who's going to have the money today.
Yeah.
And even though people like the Occupy are complaining that, well, the rich people don't do enough for us, here's a story that shows you differently. There are people, they're not, I mean, people still care about each other. It doesn't matter how rich or how poor you are. I mean, caring for your fellow man is still up there to a lot of people. Is up there as a priority to people.
Exactly, and you know, this is something we have to be careful of, and how all this goes. Now, speaking of being careful,
and being successful.
For those of you,
I didn't realize I put it in that way. The transfer to this next.
This guy talks about be careful with women and money, two temptations that have derailed more preachers than all others put together. And
exactly.
This is something I know personally because for whatever reason, you know, it started with my military experience. Me being noticed more by women. I noticed that's when it started. Well, probably because I wasn't as fat as I am now. I was a lot more shape. The losing of like 70 pounds does something to people. And then putting on a uniform. Today is Armed Forces Day, so this is why we're kind of talking about this. But as a minister now, and it doesn't matter which direction you go, ministry, armed forces.
Even just a married man.
Or just wearing a ring. Women and men want things that they cannot have. So when they see this ring, or they even see, I wear 2 rings and I get attacked even more. It does something to people that just changes their mind.
And say, well, I want that.
People say not only that I want this, they'll be like, well, what can I do to get it? There are a lot of men and women who want to date or go out with a minister or someone in the armed forces to make themselves look better because they're not happy with themselves. So
it gives them a leg up in society.
But then on the other side of the story,
it kind of makes them look big in society. Then
the other side of the story is ministry success tends to cause people to abuse their money.
Okay, well, you know, my thing was, I mean, I'm a musician. So all my life has been people wanting to use and abuse me because I was up in front playing music. I was a drummer. A female drummer is unusual. So, yeah, guys were always, they wanted to be with me for the wrong reasons. They wanted to say, well, I'll get notice, I'll get popularity because I'm with the cool church girl who plays drums.
Yeah.
Or the cool musician who, you know. And so I understand Jeremy's, you know, what he's been through too. But also, it wasn't in my, I have never wanted to date somebody or be with somebody who was married or already involved in a relationship. I cannot, I mean, I just said, Lord, there's somebody out there for me, and you're going to send him to me. You're going to have him find me. I never expected to marry a guy I never expected to date a military guy. I never, ever, ever thought I would date one of our soldiers. For the simple fact that they have a reputation. And it does precede them. And most of the time it is true. And at the time it was true for Jeremy.
Well.
And it's, I mean, and thank God, you know, the Lord got a hold of him and said, you need to stop doing this stuff, Jeremy. It's not, you know, you need to settle down and you need to, you know, you need to get yourself right. And and through me, that's how that came about. And Jeremy's even said, if I never met you and if I never married you, I truly believe I wouldn't be doing the ministry I'm doing today. So,
exactly. You know, this is one of the things that you have to understand, that as I am multitasking here because I'm having to do twice as much work trying to get these things going out. But as a minister, and, you know, I've said this before on countless opportunities and programs and shows and speeches, that, you know, JMC Ministries has been created the way it's being created. It's not going to work, so I have to close this out. But it's being created a certain way to, I don't know, but none of our typing chat's going to work for some reason this evening.
Let's move on. So anyway, when it comes to doing ministry, being a preacher, being somebody that's in the church in a leadership position, you do have to be careful. Because you are being watched at all times. You don't know what's going on. And you don't know who's out there trying to capture you, you know, catch you, or try to, you know, get you in trouble, per se. So it's like, if somebody, say, a woman wants to talk to Jeremy, say, I'm having an issue, I need somebody to talk to, whether it be on chat, or whether it be on the telephone, or whether it be coming to our home. That woman is not allowed in my house, on the phone, or in a chat, unless I know about it. And I know what the content is. I'm allowed to look at the messages. I'm allowed, most of the time when people talk to Jeremy, you are on speakerphone. Some people don't like that. But it is for our protection. Because there are people, we don't know who they are. We don't know what they're capable of doing, and it is a way to protect our ministry and also protect our marriage, and to keep the lines of communication open so we know what each other is doing. Ladies, if you're allowing other women to come in your house to visit your husband when you're not home, that is a major problem. And vice versa, if men, you're allowing other men to come in your house when you're not there and visit with your wife, that's a problem, especially if you are in the line of ministry and you are in the public eye. That is a big no-no. Because anybody could say anything, start a bad rumor, and it could ruin your life, your ministry, your marriage, anybody. I mean, it's terrible what Satan tries to do. And I guess that's all I'm trying to... Are we having issues?
Just keep going.
So, I'm at the end of what I wanted to say. Are you ready to talk now?
I'm pretty occupied. I'm trying to make certain the program's going. So Miranda pretty much covered it. I was trying to make certain our online viewers can continue this program. I do apologize. It's probably gone out again. I don't know if that's on. It's probably not. But anyway.
No, nothing's on.
Yeah, push the button and go unplug that for me real quick.
Nothing's on, Jer. Can we just move on, please?
But the point...
We went through this last night. Let's just move on.
Yeah, this happened last night. I don't know what's going on with this programming and everything, but it is unfortunate that
FedEx.
It is unfortunate that all this keeps happening. But the problem is Christians that get. And my point of this situation is, how many people have I met that look up to these Christians that have their big media outlets, that have their big churches and have all of these acquirements, and they say, I want to obtain that, and then they don't, or they realize along their life journey, figuring out, the relationship with Christ, or even if they're not even saved, they'll turn around and tell me and others in school, throughout my life history that I've experienced, and they'll say, that's not possible.
What's not possible?
It's not possible to live like that. It's not, or they'll
we're not living a perfect life. I mean, nobody is perfect. We have faults,
or they'll turn around and say, well, I just gave all my money to, and I'm homeless. I've had someone tell me that. Yeah. They gave their money to a big network, and they trusted that they were going to sow a seed, and they stepped out on faith, and they were homeless 30 days later.
All I'm going to say is, God is not going to ask you to give so much money that it makes you homeless. God does not do that.
And then on this other point, the successful preachers, when you get perverted by the root of money,
yes,
you end up doing what I have investigated. I have been in a mega church and been in a elevator. The key was unlocked, and me and my current girlfriend ran into a floor of a building here in America where the general population of this church was told they could not attend unless they were in a conference. This was not a privatized building. This was an open building, and there's a security guard at the door, and he talked to me candidly because he got paid, and I asked what was going on. He said, this chandelier is $1.2 million. This is, mind you, about 12 years ago. They have more chandeliers now and have moved into a bigger building. And the plates, and the forks, and the knives, the plates were lined in gold and platinum, and there were silver and gold forks and knives. And I asked the question to the security guard, and I said, is this what I think it is? He's like, yes, this is gold and platinum, and this is, a chandelier crystal. And I asked, well, what do you average this floor alone before you kick me out? Because that's what he had to do. How much is all this worth? And he says, I have to tell you, I don't go to this church. I'm actually part of a security team. And I pray daily. These people repent. The dude was Christian, okay? And he told me that this floor alone was like about $5 million worth of stuff in this one floor, because they said they had to entertain public people. Now, I've gone to another ministry where the same thing happened, where when you are being homeless, they would come to your facility with a limousine. They would pay $486 to pick up 10 people at a homeless shelter that was connected to a rehab. And guess what was in the back of this limousine? I've been in like 8 limousines in my life. Not because I want to brag, but because I was at the shelter, because I was doing this investigation 12 years ago. This is something I'm making public now because I can. Well, what happens is a lot of these men and women were in a rehabilitation program against drugs and alcohol. Well, in the back of a limousine, for those of you who have never been in one, they have a cooler, and they have a TV, and they have a radio. Well, apparently the guy didn't realize he was going to church and didn't take out the wine and Budweiser and everything else that was in the back of it. So what happened, all these homeless people got kicked out because they relapsed and they drank this stuff because they were invited to a big church that had a limousine.
So the church would rather pay $400 some a day for a limousine to get to pick up homeless people rather than spend the $400 some to help them get a job. Maybe pay them to do some work.
Yeah, and here's the thing. I was invited to a prayer event, and I said, hey, I'm living at blank. And they said, well, that's the most unfortunate. We'll pray for you. They didn't even pray with me. I said, I don't want prayer. I said, you guys know where I can find a job? Can I work here? They didn't offer me anything. That's the kind of stories that make me angry. Because I personally experienced this kind of apostasy. This haphazard, fake, non-following the Word of God. And these churches keep growing and growing and growing because what's happened is it's getting to the point where it's about money. Money, 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 money. How much more money can we get? And ministers, I understand ministers, you go to school and you learn things, but there's a fine line between Jesus Christ and his and the disciples and the Pharisees and the Sadducees and the scholars of the law. Now what happens is there's a balance here of actual biblical knowledge and textbook knowledge. And Jesus Christ said, you're over abundantly going beyond in any direction. This is why Jesus came in, and the same thing's happening now. We got people selling t-shirts and CDs and books and all sorts of things, all in the name of Christ. But what is the heart root of some of these things? If somebody like me, because this is the one thing that I can say, you can't say this. None of you can say this. Brandon can't say what I'm about to say. When I was homeless and I couldn't afford your book and I couldn't afford your CD and I asked for help and you told me to go buy your book, how am I supposed to get fed? Same thing goes for the Bible. Right now, the Bible is the #1 bestseller and people are selling it for $50 to $300 a Bible. Well, guess what? I got friends that are missionaries that are trying to translate wholeheartedly, earnestly, maybe making $6,000 a year, and you're turning around selling the Bible for $100, $200, $300 in regular first world countries. And there's people starving for the Word of God in America and across the world who don't have the money for the Bible. Mm-hmm. And then we have on the other side, we have, go back to the Kmart story, God, whether this man's a Christian or not, God instilled upon this man's life to want to give to help someone else. So there again, there's a balance here. I'm not saying money is wrong. I'm not saying charging the Bible is wrong. Mm. I'm saying give to those that need to be given to who can't afford it. And if you are going to charge for something, you best know where all those pennies and dimes and nickels and quarters and dollars are going. Mm-hmm. They need to be going for the kingdom.
And they need to be shown to the public where it's going.
Exactly.
Too many times these churches are spending this money. There are churches out there that are just doing whatever they want with this money, and they're not showing the people where it's going. They're not putting it in a monthly report, like in the little bulletin, saying this is where we spent every dime. They're not doing that.
Yeah.
That we need to hold our pastors and our leaders in the church accountable. It's accountability. You have to have that.
And with accountability also means asking for forgiveness and repenting. And in some cases publicly, sometimes privately. I've had to privately, repent and talk to people, and sometimes publicly. It depends on the situation.
And vice versa. We've had people come to us and say, I'm struggling with this. I have my ministry, but I'm struggling with this.
Yeah.
And I'm a Christian, but I'm struggling with this sin, this temptation, and vice versa. We've had to talk to people openly that we can trust and say, and go to others in the body of Christ and say, this is what we're struggling with. And I'll tell you what we struggle with the most.
It's our mouths.
Jeremy and I struggle the most with our mouths.
We get angry. It happens.
We easily lose our tempers a lot of the time, and it's not towards others, it's towards each other.
Yeah.
We don't yell and say mean things to others. We say it to each other. When somebody does us wrong, we say, well, we knew that was coming. We have to forgive them. They're just ignorant. But when it's us or family, I will lose my ever-loving mind. And I did. Like 2 hours before the show, I lost my mind because Jeremy blamed me for something. And I went off. And my grandma has even gotten on and she was, Miranda, you have got to just think. Think before you say something. I know it's hard. I know you're under a lot of stress. You're sick. You're in pain. You're going through a lot. But try to think. And I really do. God help me. I really do. But that's the temptation and that's the sin we struggle with. Nothing else really bothers us. I mean, yeah, that's the only thing. We're being open.
Exactly.
We're being open. That is the thing that
being open leads to this situation with a religious discrimination suit against FedEx. Now, I've done programs before where we talk about the law in America with the right to share your faith at work, and there's boundaries in it. As a Christian, I have to say something controversial. There will come a time where you will break the law to share your faith, because the law will be changed. And in this case, this is starting to look something like that. Like, I can talk about Jesus Christ at the college and other places, but not all the time. And you know, this Eric Weathers is trying to answer a few of his co-workers' questions about the Bible. And they say it was forbidden in the workplace. Religion and politics, forbidden.
However,
his speech was an act of detrimental to the company. A designation given to sexual harassment, possession of illegal drugs or weapons in the workplace, theft, workplace violence, and other acts.
But yet, in a reported act of hypocrisy, whether this man's boss engaged in religious speech just 2 weeks after she banned him from discussing the Bible. The supervisor first ordered him to define the term atheism and later sent him an email. The boss sent this other coworker, an email saying the man upstairs is watching, referring to God. The email included a picture of a Baptist church marquee that stated, "God has seen your business report numbers. You're going to hell." That's church. But she didn't get into trouble. So the Alliance Defense Fund took up this case and went against FedEx for discrimination. You want to finish?
So U.S. District Judge Edmund E. Chain denied FedEx motions for a summary judgment in January after finding enough evidence for a reasonable jury to find that Weathers suffered the requisite significant negative altercation in the workplace. So this is what you have to wonder. And this guy holds a bachelor's degree in the Bible and youth seminary from the Master's College and pursuing a master's degree of divinity from the Master's Seminary. And you kind of wonder, you know, what exactly can you do when it comes to workplace and sharing your faith? And yes, you can. You got to look at some of the laws. I know some of you guys are kind of wondering whether or not should I share my faith. Should I not share my faith?
Can I tell you something about sharing your faith in the workplace? When I never actually shared my faith, I lived my faith. And that is when, and through living my faith, that's when people started asking me questions about God. Homosexuals asked me. One man even said, "Why are you so nice to me? I'm a homosexual. Why don't you treat me mean? All Christians don't like me." And I said, "You're a human being." I said, "Doesn't matter." I said, "We're supposed to show love to everybody. It doesn't matter the choices you made, whether good or bad. We still have to love each other." And this homosexual, he actually started crying when I said that. Another time, I got some pretty tough questions, and I was only around 22 years old, but they were amazed at the wisdom I had. And when you were talking about wisdom, and people seem to not have a lot of wisdom anymore, or people, when they want wisdom, they have to pay for things, to buy wisdom. Well, God says in His own Word, those who want wisdom, just ask God, because He gives it freely. Right, Jared?
Yeah.
So wisdom shouldn't cost you anything because God gives it freely. Why is man charging? Makes you wonder. So,
wow,
that's how I shared my faith in the workplace. I did deal a lot with death. Why would God allow a baby to be hit by a car and die? Why would God allow something like that to happen? And of course, I have to say, God is God and I am not. And we don't always understand why God doesn't stop the horrible things that happen in this world and allows good people to go through bad things. But that's where faith comes in. And of course, not being a Christian, sometimes it's hard to grasp that. But that's the way I answered it. And I hope I was right. I believe I was right. It helped the lady. But that's really how I've experienced. I can't work anymore, but when I did work, it was a mission field. It is definitely a mission field. And I'm glad that this man doesn't work completely at a Christian place because it is harder if you're completely surrounded by Christians. How are you supposed to fulfill the Great Commission? So it is
good question.
So it is good at times that there are Christians. It is good that there are Christians not working in a Christian environment. They are in the highways and byways and sharing and living the gospel through working at their jobs. Okay,
exactly.
I'm done.
You know, it gets you to the point where you kind of wonder exactly how in the world do we live in this world and still want to share our faith. And like I said, there are rules and regulations on faith and how you share your faith at work. And I'm kind of cover this a little bit because you need to know the rules as how they actually are right now. Now there are different workshops, there are different things that you can look at, but honestly, when you try and share your faith at work, you know, it's something that you must actively do. But the problem is understanding your rules. So you can ask your boss. You can try and go to your PR department or whatever. You can ask for the paperwork on what's the rules of faith-based. Because in some cases they allow you to have a Bible study. You can pray at your desk or whatever. You can do all sorts of wonderful.
Well, I will tell you something. I worked for Walmart, and I actually took my Bible to the break room. And I never had a problem with reading my Bible alone. I mean, I didn't push on anybody else, but just me, myself, reading my Bible, that was never a problem. You know, I even wore my Christian t-shirts and stuff, and people, they never, you know, Christian t-shirts, because I worked in a specialty department. I didn't have a uniform. So I had a little more leeway. Plus, I worked in a freezer on top of it, so I actually had I had to wear, you know, toboggans when I would have to work in the freezers. And I would wear my Christian hoodies. And I was out on the floor one time. I just left it on. I was out on the floor working, and a woman came up to me. I was wearing Christ for Life. I think it was Christ for Life. Well, we call them beanies. And this elderly woman came up to me, and she says, "That is just a cool hat."
Cool hat.
I just lived it. I lived it. You know, I didn't have to say anything. I just lived it. I just wore it, and
yeah, you wore it, and that's just how it went. You know,
that's how it went.
People that can just Google sharing your faith, the ACLU and some others have rules and regulations on sharing your faith. But there's just so many things you can do, especially if you have a relationship with people. This is where you're going to have to get out of your comfort zone and understand the do's, don'ts, and tries. If you know you have a relationship with somebody that's candidly open to telling you, well, I had a problem with the wife because she nags me to go and, you know, clean the house or whatever, because you have a guy relationships, you talk about the wife, so you pray about wife issues and all this. But then things on the work and on the job, you know, in some cases, and this goes for private Bible studies, you can meet beforehand, before work starts. In other cases, you can meet during lunch. There's ways to work around this where you will not break the rules and regulations of, say, like, well, you can't, you know, do a Bible study during work hours. You must be doing this, 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 and this. Well, if you're in a facility where, you know, you got to wait for customers to come in, there's nothing to be clean, you guys can have a chat amongst yourselves as you're sweeping the floor or whatever.
That's how it went down a lot of times for me. That's when we had a lot of I had two jobs where a lot of times we have a lot of downtime certain times of the day, and we were just kind of doing little piddly things here and there, detail work, detail cleaning. For some reason, every job I had, that's what I was stuck doing. They gave me detail cleaning because nobody wanted to do it, but I loved doing detail cleaning. I would have been good in the military. I loved it.
Well, see,
and I was good at it. That's why they let me do it. So, and I didn't have to mess with customers.
I mean, here's the thing: you have to be able to understand. And this is the one thing no one at the college has heard me say. I don't use Christian jargon at the college. You know how people will just automatically, say, words like sanctified. I don't always mention that. I don't mention always big preachy words, highly blessed, favor, and all this stuff.
Yeah.
I don't use the general terminology that you hear when you walk into a church, like, well, how you doing today, sister? I hope you're blessed and highly favored, and I hope you're doing well, and I've been praying for amen. You can't just do that at a job, especially with a non-Christian, because it freaks them out, and they're like, how do you do that? You have to start doing this new thing that you've never experienced before, called spiritually listening. Mm-hmm. This is where you allow the Holy Spirit to take over your ears, and you're not listening anymore with your human ears. You take your fingers in your ears, you're not listening. Then you have to pluck out your eyes, and you're not seeing anymore with your eyes, and you're not hearing anymore. And then you get a thing called the tongue.
That was gross. You stuck your fingers in your ears and touched your tongue.
I don't care. It's my body. But anyway, you're not hearing, you're not seeing, you're not talking with yourself. You're completely out of the way, because for this to work, you can't be in the picture.
Okay.
But you are in the picture. This is where, the Holy Spirit, Jesus Christ, taking over you. That's a visual thing, finger in the ear and all that.
Don't put, anyway. No, you already touched enough in your head. Don't touch mine.
Anyway. Anyway, see like that, pat her on the head when she does good. Pat her on the head.
I'm not a dog. I am not a dog, so don't.
No, you're not. But anyway, the point is, and I'm trying to make you laugh so you can stay on track with me here, is focus. Things will happen throughout your work schedule, and in the communication, when someone talks to you, you're going to learn you're being put here in this position to pray, because the Bible is real clear about Paul, and this is something somebody told me I'm capable of doing. I guess not everybody has this gift, but praying for things that not the obvious person sees. Mm-hmm. Like when you see someone, like your coworker, your friends, your family, and they're having a hard time, you don't have to just come and say, "What's the matter, brother? Are you okay, brother?" No, you don't have to do that. And I know that was a Hulk Hogan reference. Brother, it's supposed to be funny. But anyway, I'm trying to make a joke for all the
I didn't think Hulk Hogan said that.
Yeah, he says brother and all that weird stuff. But anyway,
I was thinking of a movie. Brother.
Yeah, I'm thinking about that too. Emmett Otter's Christmas special. But anyway, I'm making a joke of a serious situation, because I know some of you get tuned out when I get too spiritually and all that stuff. But there's a lot of things God can do through you that you may not realize today. And I'm taking a lot of time on this topic because you must understand the importance of being the vessel for the Holy Spirit. Being the vessel that Christ wants to use for you. And when we start cross effects, we will get more in depth in these kinds of subjects. Because I want you to understand what your faith is and how to live out your faith even when you do something wrong. This is another situation. When you do something wrong at work, how can you share your faith? It's that whole humbleness part that you don't like, apologies, and I'm sorry, I made my mistakes, and, I'll learn from that. There's a lot of things you can do. You can, trying to talk to someone can come through in a new point, because these people can become your best friends. Sometimes you don't want to be best friends with some coworkers. I know there's always that situation where there's just a person you want to deal with. That's the person you pray for the most.
Yeah.
And that leads me to our next topic about praying for someone from the most. The reason why I'm saying this is because you've got to understand this is an area that I have experienced.
I have experienced as
well.
She
has experienced.
And it is very close to our hearts.
And just like the issue of pornography and other things, this is something not discussed in the church. And it's not preached about on a regular basis. And yeah, we know Saddleback.
And I will tell you, bullying is happening in the church too. Mm-hmm. Because I will tell you, either it was at school or it was in the church.
Our good friend
where I was bullied.
Our good friend Alex Marashko of the Christian Post talks about it in his latest article, Where's the Church?
When it comes to anti-bullying.
Paul Coughlin says, I was bullied by a parent and a sibling, so I know what it does to a person. I know what it's like to not want to wake up the next day, and you are just so miserable because you've been so humiliated, so torn up, you think you are worthless. Founded in 2005, the Protectors, an organization aimed at equipping children, parents, and school officials against the rising trend of bullying. He just spoke at Saddleback, at a training seminar this Saturday about waking up. Like, where's the church? And I have to ask, for the Uniona issue with the whole, I know it was a gay issue, a gay student and all this, but I was like, where was the church here locally when it came to something like that? You know, where is it at where it's so much emphasis on allowing the church to wake up? How come we're not seeing this in our mainstream media, where they're wanting to come to us, wanting to know what we think about it?
Can I say something? When I was dealing with bullying and threats, I had my life threatened by a teen at a church. More than once. At one church in particular, my life was threatened twice. Once to be shot and once to be put in the hospital, beaten so bad.
Yes.
That is an extreme case of bullying. And nothing was done. The church, the elders, did nothing to protect me. The pastor told me and my father his hands were tied because the one person who threatened to shoot me, his father was the first one of the elders of the church. Mm-hmm. Do you think anything was going to be done? It wasn't. The pastor told my father and I that it would be probably in the best interest if we just left the church as soon as possible. And not long after we left, the pastor left as well. So what does that tell you?
It tells you it happens a lot.
It happens. And the church is not stepping it up. I'm telling you, the church isn't doing enough. From my experience, every time I was bullied, every time I was threatened in a church, because this didn't happen just in one church. This happened in multiple churches when I was a teenager and even in my early 20s. I was threatened, I was bullied, and nobody in the church ever stood up and said this needs to stop. Nobody protected me in the church. The only people that protected me was a police officer who took my name, and I got a restraining order against the guy that threatened to shoot me. And that didn't do much good either. But that's the only way that it stopped, was I had to go to the world to get the church to stop hurting me.
Well, why don't you explain how serious this happened? What happened next? Even though, let me set this up for you guys so you understand. Brenda had this young man who threatened to blow her head off with a shotgun and some other things.
During a church service.
Sexually harassed her, had to go and get a restraining order against this young man.
He was stalking me.
This means she went and filled out paperwork, and this paperwork shows you have to explain several instances, and it has to be verified and all that. The police, file this, it's sent to him, he signs it, all that, blah, blah, blah. Can't be X amount of feet away from Miranda. And then one day when she's at her home...
A year later.
12 months later.
Yeah.
12 months later, guys. Explain what happens.
He found out where I was living.
Found out where she lives.
And he showed up at my grandparents' home to see me.
Came to her house and knocked on the door and said, "Is Miranda home?" Knowing completely well that he signed a form stating that he was not supposed to get around Miranda. So we know personally the full extent of bullying. In fact, I've been shot at, I've been stabbed. Well, not just that,
but just people starting rumors and, saying, well, we heard you did this at the church and that when I was a teenager, and, girls bullying me because I played drums and they got jealous of me. That has a lot to do with the jealousy when you're a teenager. A lot of that has to do with jealousy. And the church didn't help protect me. The school never protected me. And the only way I was protected, we thought, was to move out of my mom's house where I was living. I lived for 16 years. 15 years. Almost 15 years of my life. And I had to go and move across the county to live with my grandparents to try to possibly be in a safer environment because of what people in the church did to me.
Okay, well, I'm going to finish with what I was saying. I've been shot at by my own stepfather. I've been stabbed. I've been set on fire. All in my community. On my road where I lived. Someone grabbed my bike and they had like a bonfire and I was trying to get away, and the guy grabbed a stick and he burnt my arm, burnt the hair off, and burned in piece. I've had it where I've been knocked over and a motorcycle and 3 other bicycles ran over my back and skinned up my back. I've had people slam my head in a locker. I have been urinated on. I've been beaten. And people try to force me to eat bugs and dirt. Ever since kindergarten on up, my whole elementary school life, in school, and even in some church events, because I would go to summer camp, and I wouldn't go back to that church again, because some of the people that was in my school, or in another school, because I tried to go to another town, because I was the short, chubby, little white kid, for whatever reason. So I personally understand bullying exists. And honestly, for a church, this is the hard part. When it's already members of the church causing the problem, you can't have any accountability within that facility. This is where I challenge you and say something else controversial. If your life is in danger and you've already tried to talk to all this leadership and they won't listen and hear you, get out of that church. It's dangerous for you. I don't care if your mother's brother, sister's uncle's cousin, or how great the worship leader is, or whatever. You got to leave.
The article wasn't about bullying in the church, but where is the church when it comes to anti-bullying? And that's where I'm taking it, because I was bullied in the church also, not just in school, but in the church.
He says in this article, when it comes to Christians everywhere, we are not supposed to get into the sin of cowardice. Revelation 21:8. Right now, our Christian children are sinning every week at school because they see bullying taking place. The fact is, kids know that bullying is wrong. They feel that it is wrong. They just fail to act if it's wrong. Cowardice is sin. In other words, when you are silent, and you sit here and you watch this person, you're stupid, you're fat, you're an idiot, you're stupid, you're fat, you're an idiot, and you don't do anything. I'll give you another example, and I'll let Miranda help analogy this. This is the 6th grade. I had a jacket, a big heavy coat, because people would beat me up. And it was the only way to keep me from getting hurt. The principal, nobody would do anything. Well, one day I got a new big heavy Arctic jacket. I know this is Texas, but I was cold a lot. They took the arms and they tied them in a knot, held me in the chair. They pulled the hood over my head and pulled the strings and tied it till I was choking in my own jacket, tied to my seat and could not get up. The teacher came in the classroom and everyone laughed at me and said I shouldn't have worn my coat. As the teacher was laughing at me, he undoes the coat and tells me I have to leave the classroom and remove my coat. All 20-some-odd students were not in trouble that day. I went to the principal, superintendent. Nobody did anything. Cowardice is sin. It says we're calling upon Christian kids throughout the nation to stand up assertively, but non-violently. Oppose the intentional acts of cruelty and abuse, because it is abuse.
It is.
The bully's goal is to psychologically, physically, emotionally harm other people. They're looking to harm them, and the psychological scars can last a lifetime. I can remember every single word said in that situation. I can remember the look in the eyes of my teacher looking at me as I'm trying to breathe.
Because you have asthma on top of it.
And the looks of the students in the room. Now, as a Christian, I've forgiven all these people, but should that have ever happened?
No. Should it continue to happen? It's getting worse. I mean, there's a difference between calling names and then this physical violence that has escalated in bullying.
So Coughlin further explains probably the biggest myth is that bullying is really about conflict and misunderstanding.
No, it's not. And
miscommunication and anger management. Bullying is not those things, because the problem is
you could be bullied just by walking. Somebody could just walk down the street. We've seen that. We've been walking out town and somebody just yell at us for no reason.
Yeah.
Yell obscenities to us. We've sat on our patio here at our house and somebody yelled at the street, curse words at us.
Exactly.
Do they know us? No, but that's bullying. If a person's has that in their mind to do this to other people, it isn't going to matter who you are, what you look like, whatever. They're going to just do it.
And see, here's one of the most interesting points is is the homosexual community, specifically GLSEN, will say that me as a Christian saying homosexuality is a sin, they are saying that that's bullying. So we have to be real careful though too, because when we start teaching our children, when we start teaching adults what's a sin, what's not a sin, you do not need to sit here and just expect your good little kids or your good little adults or fat adults, whatever size you are, skinny, fat, large, plump, whatever word you want to call it. We're all different sizes and colors of the rainbow here. You can't just expect people to follow the right rules.
Yeah. Because we live in a world of sin, and that's where it comes, that's the root of it all.
So one of the things is that I had with my family was I was able to have this open dialogue with my family. I trusted my family to say, Mommy, somebody hurt me at school today. But the problem is now in school and elsewhere, it's uncool, it's not hip, it's not bad as a mug, it's not rad, it's not chillin', it's not bodacious to sit here and say, man, well this dude is like crunking on me, man, bro, he's getting up my space, man. You can't say that. Because there's this big divide.
You don't want to look like you're a wuss.
Yeah.
But yet, when these children take their own lives in suicide, and they leave notes, I couldn't deal with the bullying anymore.
And here's the other interesting thing. And here's something.
What is it needs to stop. Too many. There are 5-year-olds killing themselves. Children as young as 5 are taking their lives because of bullying, because they mentally can't deal with it anymore. They are broken.
Yep, and you go to Canada, it's age 8, they're committing suicide. Age 5 in other countries. Here's some more about this. Another myth, and Miranda will probably disagree with it. Coughlin says further, another myth we want to blow up is that bullies, on average, have low self-esteem. Studies show that bullies have an average to excessive self-esteem. The average bully does not need to feel better about himself or herself. They actually feel they are better than other people and that other people deserve their awful treatment. We want to provide clarity in what we consider theater of bullying. In other words, they are narcissistic.
Yep.
Here's what it is. It's like, I'm taller than you, so I'm better than you, and I'm a boy and you're a girl, so therefore you're stupid. That's exactly what they think in their mind. And it's not, and you know what? It boosts their ego when they can get someone
Now I will say there is some times when people with a low self-esteem who have been abused by other people will turn and do abusive acts on other people to try to make themselves feel better. That does happen too. But like they said, it is a myth more than not that people that bully have low self-esteem. No. I'll tell you, the people that bully me, they came from good homes. They wore the best clothes. They were the most popular kids in school. And they were the meanest.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Mean Girls movie to a T.
That's true. So here's furthermore. They talk about alongside standards. They can actively intervene in the moment, or they can comfort the target later. You know, the person that just got picked on. We encourage them to report what they saw and report to authority. It's the only way we're going to change this, because bullies, and a lot of people don't know this, they're highly predatory and highly selective. Now here's the thing. When I was a kid, it was like the teacher would come up to me and say, now don't tattletale, Miranda. Don't tattletale on him. I don't need to hear all that. That is another myth. Mm-hmm. The word tattletale needs to be removed from a teacher's mouth. You need to be honestly transparent. You need to be like little military soldiers with a top secret clearance. And anytime someone comes in as a bully and starts picking on someone, that's an automatic enemy of the state, of the school. And all these little kids need to say, stop, stop, stop. Could you imagine if one bully came up in a room of 20 and all 18 of them stood up in their chairs and said, stop, stop, stop? Now, I've seen it before. I was pushed and a bully picked on one of my friends. And I stupidly said, takes one to know one. Well, guess what? He challenged me to a fight later that day. First day of the 6th grade. He's the 8th grade student.
I'm sorry, I laughed because Jeremy just doesn't fight. He just never fought.
So here's the thing.
I kicked Jeremy's butt. That's
here's
why
the thing that put me in a popularity. Well, his girlfriend came over and says, I want to date you because you're really awesome. You stood up to my boyfriend. Well, what happened is he backed me in the corner and he kicks me in the crotch and I just stand there and but I don't back down. And I say, you don't talk to him that way. In front of the whole school that morning. I didn't report this kid, and later that day he actually stopped me and he said, you know what, Jeremy, you're the first person to stand up to me, and I realized I shouldn't have done that. He shook my hand. He says he would not pick on me again, protected me the rest of the year. This man went on to high school, and when I was picked on, he come down here and he protected me. In some cases,
it's sad that you had to basically get into a fight to make it to stop. But
I didn't hit back. That was the thing. I just stood there.
Well, the thing is, I did. I got in a fight my junior year because this other student was threatening constantly for 2 years to beat me up to a pulp and put me in the hospital. And finally, I had enough, and I got in a fight with her on a school bus. And I was just sick of it. I blew my top. Like we said, I have an issue with my temper. That's part of my problem I struggle with. I got in a fight. I beat this girl to a pulp. And after I beat her up, I was never bullied the rest of my entire life.
Now we have to stop. Time out. Time out.
It isn't good to fight.
Time out. We have to sit here and say we do not endorse people fighting.
But
this is where me and
this
Mazzen
is
disagree.
what happened in my case. That's the extreme. I mean, I even got suspended from school. That's the only thing ever on my record. I was suspended for 3 days. At the end, it was at the end of the year, and we'd already taken all our exams, and it was like the last 2 weeks of school when it happened. And it was horrible. My mom punished. My mom really didn't punish me. My dad really didn't punish me. You know why? Because the school wouldn't do anything. It was the fact that the bullying had to get to that point where I had to literally lose it. I had a breakdown practically when I beat this girl up. I mean, I bloodied her nose and I probably bruised some of her ribs. That's pretty bad. That's how bad it got. That just tells you how good my dad taught me how to fight to protect myself, because she was threatening me. And but after that, like I said, after that, nobody ever threatened me. Nobody ever bullied me. People left me the heck alone.
Now here's the thing.
You know what? It shouldn't have had to get that far.
In my case, when I actually did finally decided to fight because of where I lived, her situation was different. And this is what some parents say, and I've heard it. Well, son, daughter, you need to learn to defend yourself. You're going to Taekwondo class. Okay, that's great. And you learn to chop, kiyak, and all that stuff. And then this kid starts pushing you, and you block and all this stuff. Then, you know what's happened now? When you go to school, Brenda can't do this where I'm from. She would have been put in jail.
Yeah.
Juvenile detention hall for 2 weeks.
I would have been put...
After the 2 weeks of that, she's also suspended for school to up to 30 days, and then she has to go to alternative school. If she fights 2 times, she's kicked out of the school district and not allowed to graduate. They take this very seriously where I come from, because somebody was almost killed one day. Let me set this up. Have you seen them? Have you heard about the movie Bloodsport with Jean-Claude Van Damme?
I love that movie.
Well... Anyway, it's an R-rated movie. You know, we watched it on TV.
That's one of the movies my dad had me watch when I was a kid.
Let me focus. We got to get on track. Don't talk about that. The point of the matter is, it's really popular in the 80s. And what happened in my school district? These kids were getting duct tape and paper mache and all sorts of stuff, and they actually dipped their fingers in glass. And they were tying their fingers with razor blades, and they were fighting with razor blades and glass. And this guy lost an eyeball. This is why...
That didn't never happen in my school.
My situation happened to me when I did fight back and I started to defend myself. You know what happened? The guy was involved in a gang. So I got beat up by a lot of people. And this is when my underwear was completely ripped on both sides because they gave me such a wedgie, it broke the straps of the legs completely out. And they pulled my underwear out of my pants. I had to go and get special things taken care of medication because of the burn that I received by how strongly they've done that. I don't endorse fighting at all. I endorse self-defense, which is block, 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 block. Do not hit ever. I endorse that. But the problem is, in schools, a child can't block anymore. If a child just stands here, and go ahead, hit me in the head. If it poke me on the arm. If a child just stands there and keep doing it, don't stop. If a child just stands here, and this is what the teacher sees, both kids are being accused of fighting, and both of them are in trouble. So, being a victim, you're automatically considered the criminal.
The laws work for the criminals. More and more in our justice system, and it's pitiful. But, we're at our...
We're fine. We can keep going.
But I think we need to just close with this. I think this has just been...
Oh, I think we got we got 2 more articles to go. We want to do this. So what I want you guys to do is I want you to pray for your kids, and what we can do is I don't endorse fighting. I don't endorse that. I want you to tell somebody.
I mean, I was put in a situation where, what was I supposed to do? Nobody, I was being threatened, and I didn't know what else to do. I was 16 years old.
Yep.
I was almost 16 years old when this happened. So I didn't. That just is another reason why my mom moved me away from that area.
Oh yeah, it gets really creepy when a lot of these things happen. So now I want to translate over to our last couple of topics, because we could talk about this all night. It's been amazing, all this is working, everything's great. I want to talk about real briefly, and this won't take very long because it's not that long of a discussion, but GPS tracking systems are being used for good in North Korea.
They're confirming the landing of Bible balloons in North Korea.
Now here's the thing. I know this. There's the bridge of no return. The bridge of no return. This is not false. South Korea, we have the military. This zone in between South and North, where nothing can happen. You cross over, you're dead. You cross over, you're dead. Blah, blah, blah. Anyway, what happens is propaganda between the North and the South, years after years, have been passed by balloons. So the great Christian missionaries that exist have decided to take advantage of the situation by putting Bibles attached to these balloons, and now there's a GPS that's letting them know where it's being dropped, and maybe they got some kind of special...
And confirming that people are getting the Bibles.
Seoul, USA, North Korea, American NGO launches Bibles and gospel flyers into North Korea 70 to 80 times per year. I think this is a great story after talking about bullying for a while.
Free Bibles.
North Korean defectors tell us they see the Bible flyers and heard the radio broadcast during the time in North Korea. But now, knowing where they're landing is great. And I've heard some of the radio broadcasts. They will broadcast this on air at a certain station, and they'll preach the gospel to them in their own native language on a frequency they're allowed to. And now they're doing the balloons with Bibles and so on and so forth, because people need to hear the word of Christ. I think it's amazing.
I think we ought to send up Bible balloons here in the United States.
Oh, yeah.
Instead of charging people $50 for a Bible, let's send them up a balloon and just... Here, a free Bible just landed in your yard. There you go. Want it?
Yep. And then, I think that's just an amazing thing. And then we have some news that you need to pray about. Iran is calling for something that... And
it was one Iranian official.
Yeah. This one guy is speaking about Islamic awakening to demolish the Zionist regime. May 15th is the day where the State of Israel was reestablished with the Declaration of Independence in 1948. He says, if we wish success for the Palestinians, the existence of these 3 factors are necessary as they exist in the case of the victory of the Islamic resolution of Iran. This is the Sheikh Islam said, the near future of the Islamic awakening movement will also swallow the Zionist regime.
Which is
turning
Israel.
The Palestinians and homeless people as a Zionist Western plot to enable illegal Zionist immigrants to settle down in our ancestors' motherlands over the ruins of our homes. So long as the entire Palestinian groups are not united, each part is merely heeding its own factual interest, the problems of this detached part of the Islamic world will never be solved. Now this is the thing, as Christians we need to pray, and I know we're considered Zionists and everything. As we did the interview with Mazzen, Warra, and as we're talking about this right now, I want you to be completely aware that you must pray for Israel, you must pray for Palestinians, you must pray for Egyptians, Arabs, Persians, I don't care what you're called, in the Middle East, pray for them. Because the same God I believe in, Jesus Christ, can save anyone.
There's just so much hate.
And there's this big discord between Jews and Muslims and Christians. Like, certain Jews and Muslims hate Christians. They agree on that. Certain places in Israel. They want nothing to do with Christians. Want nothing to do with Jews. Or, vice, it's a discord that never ends. It upsets me. But I realize, ending this topic, I want you to watch the Mazzen Warra interview. You need to listen to this man. You need to understand what's going on in the world. And NATO starts tomorrow. Turkey has banned Israel from coming. There are occupied people all over the world wanting to overthrow the government this weekend, more or less destroy all NATO. Is what they want to try and do. And this guy sitting here funneling this stuff in his mouth. And now that we have the internet's a good thing, but it's also a bad thing because the devil's using the internet.
Oh yeah.
He's enlightening and waking up people to a truth, as they call it, that is dangerous. It's not like 1 John 5:20. Truth is truth. The truth of Jesus Christ. John talking about the Logos, the Word, the truth, the light, the everlasting Lord Jesus Christ. This is something that we as Christians must earnestly wake our minds up. The wisdom mentioned in the book of Daniel is very clear that in the end days, wisdom will surpass beyond all understanding. And we as Christians can work in this situation. I know many of you are not called to Israel. You're not called to work with the Jewish people. But you're not called to work with the Muslim people or whatever. But I have to disagree with you on that just a little bit. Just a little bit. There's something called prayer. There's something called praying for those that are actually involved in this. That are in the front lines. That are in Jerusalem, in Palestine, West Bank, Gaza Strip, all over the place. Right now there are Christians communicating with Middle Eastern descent. Some of them are in prison. Some of them are freely able to transport themselves back and forth whenever they want. Or they could be like that pastor, Yazif, in Iran in jail. I believe as the end days get closer, you will see a massive opening of revival in the Middle East. This is something you haven't really seen, have you? Revival in the Middle East. You've seen it in the southern middle parts of Africa. You've seen it with that big church in China. You've seen it in the former USSR, where that's destroyed, and now Germany and all sorts of places there in Europe. People are getting saved. Australia, Central South America, Canada, and the United States. One more place. The Middle East. Now, we said this before. Wycliffe Bible translators hypothetically says, or maybe they can actually come out and do this. I'm hoping it can happen, and not a hypothetical. But they hope by 2025. That's not too long away from now. That's a little over 10 years from now. All languages can have the Bible translated in their own language, physically, in their hands. That's another step that's going to happen. There's a lot of things we have to be careful of. A lot of directions we have to go through. I wanted to end this show tonight letting you guys know that there's a lot more coming here on JMC Live. Miranda, what are you looking forward to on JMC Live and the rest of the ministry? I know that I have a couple of weeks left here with school. Miranda wants a vacation. I know that's what she wants.
I'm looking forward to not doing JMC Live. I'm looking forward to getting a break. We've done 4 shows in 2 days.
Yep, there's a lot of stuff going on. So here's what we got. We have the Chelsea Schilling interview you guys can check out on. You can check out on the Joshua Turner interview, Mazzen Warra, Eternal Flame News last night. This should be automatically uploaded, hopefully good to go by the end of tonight. This has been an amazing time of fellowship and seeing what Christ is going to do. And you need to stay tuned. You need to see what God is going to do next. There's just so much in store for what we have here at JMC Live. God bless you, and we'll see you soon.